nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut. Today we'll go bird watching, tomorrow we'll catch toads. The next day we'll take photographs of bugs along the road. I never get the feeling that I'm in a rut. That's why I'm a nature nut. Well, I'm a nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.
Don't you love frogs? Frogs always remind me of a famous Japanese poem written by a guy named Basho in the 17th century. The poem goes like this. The old pond, a frog jumps in, plop. That's it, that's the end of the poem. No, Basho, he was a Zen monk, and that poem for him was the expression of the very moment that he achieved Zen enlightenment, perfect unity with the universe, present moment awareness, very profound. Frogs have always had a profound effect on me too, but I think it's the kid in me that loves frogs. No kid can resist the temptation to chase after a jumping frog. So, why don't we give in to that temptation and spend today's episode watching frogs, chasing frogs, and contemplating frogs. Oh, am I having fun today? Next time you've got one of those weekends you don't know what to do, try standing in a pond for a couple of hours. You hear that little chorus frog? He's singing somewhere in the reeds right in front of me, and I can't see him. That's why I'm using these binoculars. Last time I did this, it took me 45 minutes to find the frog, but I'm going to get some videotape of that little guy singing no matter what. I've got my video camera with me. It's just a regular home video camera, although I did add an extra telephoto lens to it. That's a great thing to have if you like taking videotape of nature subjects. This one cost me about $300. You can get them as inexpensively as about $50. Good thing to have, I gotta tell you. Now, where'd that... Well, we'll catch up to him. Like I say, I'm in no rush. Frog watching is something that most people do more or less by accident. It's not like bird watching, even though there are 3,000 species of frogs in this world, as opposed to about 9,000 species of birds. Here in this pond, there are 3 species of frogs, the chorus frog, the wood frog, and the boreal toad, and about 200 or so species of birds in the surrounding woodlands. Why is that? Because the birds get to go south for the winter, and the frogs have to dive down into the bottom of the pond and spend the winter in the mud. Now, doesn't that sound pleasant? Frogs, they're tough little critters. They deserve our respect. Whoa.
Triadobatrachus, a 230 million year old fossil frog, is older than the oldest dinosaurs.
For some reason, when I'm talking, he doesn't mind calling. I think he must think I'm some other kind of frog that has a different call that just sort of sounds like the English language. And I'll get a focus on him. Now, if you don't have a video camera, you don't need a video camera to go frog watching. You can use your binoculars. And I'm going to leave that chorus frog in the pond here. I know that most frog-loving people, and especially kids, when they see a frog that close, the urge is to catch it, take it home, and make a pet out of it. But my feeling is, let's leave the wild frogs in the wild. There are frogs that will breed in captivity that are truly pet frogs, and I'd like to show you the pet frogs that I have at my place.
Frogs make great pets. They don't make affectionate pets, but they do make interesting pets. After all, it's nifty to be able to spy on the life of a little frog in an aquarium. And the good thing these days is that many species of frogs are being bred in captivity, and you can go to a pet store, you can get a frog that came from some other aquarium. It didn't come from the wild. It wasn't snatched from its natural habitat. I want to show you some of my frogs. My favorite frog, well, I mean, you know, favorite frog is someday it's my favorite, someday it's not my favorite, but this is a great frog. This is a White's tree frog, and right now she's green, sometimes she's brown. They're named after someone named White. It's not that they're white in color, and her name is Handsome Mo. When I first got this frog, I didn't know that she wasn't a guy. Handsome Mo sounds like a guy name. Look at that for a beautiful frog. There's Mo. She has big sticky toes. She's a member of the tree frog family. She can climb right on the glass in her aquarium. And you can see she's got beautiful eyes. I've never met a frog that didn't have beautiful eyes. A beautiful little eardrum right behind her eye so she can hear every word that I'm saying, although she doesn't understand it. Don't jump on my face, Mo. Have you ever tried to do that with your throat? It's really hard. You can't do it. Frogs breathe that way. Sometimes they don't need to breathe all the way down into their lungs, so they just breathe with the lining of their mouth. Oh, Mo, you little idiot. You goofball. Where are you going, Mo? She could live as long as 20 years. That's the longevity record for White's tree frogs. So when you get a White's tree frog, it's kind of like getting a dog. It's a big commitment. And Mo, you could be around for who knows how long. I've had Mo for about 4 years now. Now, I'll put her back in her tank. She has a branch to climb on in here and some plastic plants and water at the bottom of her tank that is continually being cleaned by a filter, which also bubbles nice, fresh, clean air into her tank so that she always feels like she's living in a clean, happy, and healthy environment. Now, Mo, would you please let go of my hand and grab onto the plants? This is not always easy, you know. Come here, Mo. Oh, Mo, you're such a little... This frog feels like it's made out of rubber. There you go. There you go, back in the tank. Thank you so much. Now let me show you another one. Some frogs don't mind being handled, but others probably shouldn't be handled at all. They're so delicate and shy. In here, in this jungle of vegetation, is a tiny little golden mantella frog. It's a forest floor frog, bright orange, beautiful, but you rarely see it. This is the sort of frog that someone like me, someone who really likes frogs, would enjoy having as a pet in an aquarium. It's not the sort of frog that a kid would like because you can't really handle it and you don't get to see it all that often. But what a beautiful little creature, so delicate, so shy, and oh, there it is. And back into the bushes once more. Eats little tiny crickets. Beautiful frog. But in my opinion, the very best frog for pet frog is the fire-bellied toad.
Frogs live almost everywhere on Earth, but they cannot survive in salt water.
This is frog food. Live crickets dusted with a vitamin and mineral powder that you buy at the pet store, and fire-bellied toads love these crickets. Fire-bellied toads are so wonderful. They're colorful, they're active during the day, and they can live as long as 12 years, believe it or not. They're most interesting during feeding time because they see mostly motion rather than images, and they often mistake each other for food when the crickets are in their tank. So let's give them some crickets and see how they do. Okay, well, everybody's getting a cricket here. There we go. Venturi's got one, and don't think about it, just do it. Oh. You notice too, when they swallow, they sort of suck their eyes into their head, and their eyes actually help push the food down their throat. Green thumb got one. Some of them seem more interested in mating than eating right now. Oh, they're so interesting. They're just really neat. If you like frogs, you gotta like these frogs. By the way, one last thought on pet frogs. If you have a pet frog and you get tired of it or you can't keep it anymore, please don't let it go in the wild. That's the worst thing you can do. Take it back to the pet store or find a good home for it. Oftentimes, pet frogs that have been released into the wild, they'll establish themselves in places where they're not native. They can be really hard on the native frogs. Sometimes they even eat native frogs, and some of them are poisonous, which is hard on dogs and cats and small children who like to put frogs in their mouths. So the worst thing you can do is let a pet frog go. The best thing you can do is to give it a good home and look after it as best as you can.
I'm on the boardwalk. We're at the Cliffordy Lee Nature Sanctuary, and right in front of me is a traditional breeding spot for the wood frog. It is traditional in the sense that every year the frogs come right here. Why do they come right here instead of over there or at the other end of the marsh? Good question. The frogs know, we don't. But a few weeks ago, I was here with my home video camera. There were 152 wood frogs in this little area of swamp, and you know, I might have counted a couple of them twice, or I might have missed one or two, but you get the picture. A lot of wood frogs, and they were in the breeding mood, you might say. The male wood frogs come here. They start to make their sound. Now, they don't really croak, and they don't say ribbit. There's only one kind of frog that says ribbit. That's the Pacific tree frog. It lives in, you know, in and around Hollywood and up the coast. And yeah, the talent scouts discovered this frog that says ribbit. They recorded its sound, and it became quite famous. But these frogs, they sort of go crick, 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 like that. Most frogs, the male frogs, are the ones that make the noise. They have a sort of a balloon on their throat, and when they sing, it's sort of like barbity, 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 like that. But the wood frog, the male wood frog, his vocal sacs, as we say, are on his shoulders. So when he does his grick, 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 grick noise, his shoulders puff up, which the females find very alluring. The female frogs come here. The males, when they see the females, they rush over to them, and they have giant thumbs in the springtime. Male wood frogs get these huge thumbs, and they rush over, grab the female by her armpits with their big thumbs, and whew, man, can you imagine that? And then the female is incited, induced, whatever, to release her eggs into the water in their big blob of jelly, and the male releases his sperm, and they mix up, and the miracle of frog birth is thereby achieved. So when the breeding frenzy was over here, there were about 120 egg blobs in the water right here, and each blob had about 200 eggs in it. At least that's what we assume. I didn't count them. And so, you know, there should be about 20-some thousand tadpoles in the water here now. So let's check that out. I have my tadpole equipment with me, a fish net, a white plastic ice cream pail tub. Traditionally, biologists use a white enamel pan for this, but hey, who has a white enamel pan these days? Ice cream pail tub, that's what I use. So we'll get some water in it first. There we go. And now we'll see if there are any tadpoles. So these little black wiggly things, those are wood frog tadpoles, and they're mixed in with a few water fleas, some baby back swimmers, and I thought I saw a little green scud in here too.
Every year, my fire-bellied toads lay eggs. They spend a few weeks first in the refrigerator. I put them on damp sphagnum moss, and that's their version of hibernating. Then they come out. They lay eggs in the water. The eggs turn into tadpoles. The tadpoles then turn into little baby toads, and it's really interesting to watch. At first, the tadpole's just a little round thing with a tail, and then the legs poke out, the back legs first, and then the tail actually gets absorbed back into the body. It doesn't fall off. They use the material in the tail to build their little toady physiques, and it's so wonderful. Tadpoles, by the way, are technically called larvae, which is just a word that means immature animals. And the process that they go through to become frogs is called metamorphosis. Great word.
There once were some toads with fire bellies,
who laid eggs in blobs of clear jelly. They hatched in 3 days, then the tads swam away, but you'll still see them here on the telly. There once was a baby bambina, the cutest that you've ever seen-a. His old tail now a stump, how he loved to go jump, but his belly did not long stay clean-a. The gastric brooding frog of Australia swallows its eggs and rears its young in its stomach.
You know what the most popular question is when people start getting interested in frogs and toads? The question is, what's the difference between a frog and a toad? And the answer is, it's not a very good question. And I'll tell you why. There are about 3,000 species of frogs on Earth, and they together form an order. Now you might remember your animal classification. An order is just a group of species, and orders are broken into families. Now you might think that there were only 2 families, the frog family on the one hand and the toad family on the other, but that's not the way it works. There are actually 14 families, and only one of them is the toad family. The rest of them, including the toad family, can all be called frogs, so that all toads are frogs, but not all frogs are toads. Now I've been sneaking around this pond and I've found 3 different species, all 3 that live here, and they come from 3 different families. So let me show you what I mean. Okay, now to start with, here's a lovely female boreal toad. And you can tell that she's a toad because she has bumpy skin, and she's got these wonderful little bumps, big bumps behind the eyes. Those are called parotoid glands that produce poison that make it so that other animals don't want to eat this toad. And isn't she beautiful? Toads don't give you warts, by the way. These aren't real warts. Warts are a viral infection of the human skin. Whoa. These are beautiful little bumps that aren't warts at all, so you can't get a wart from a toad. Anyway, let's let her go. She's done her part, and take her easy, toad. Back to your pond. Okay, now let me show you frog and frog family number 2. This you'll recognize as a wood frog, if I can catch it. And a wood frog is a typical frog. Now, this is how you hold frogs too, if they're jumpy ones. Oh, sorry, little guy. You just grab them by the hind legs, and they may struggle a bit, but it won't hurt them. Now, wood frog, as you can see, doesn't have bumpy skin at all, and doesn't have those parotoid glands. Has a nice pointy nose. So he's a member of the frog family, the true frog family. What a stupid name, as if all the other frogs are just faking it. The Ranidae. A wood frog, Rana sylvatica. Sylvatica means forest, like silviculture or selva, the Spanish word for forest. The forest frog. So now you've done your part. Thank you so much, little forest frog, and we'll let him go now too. So I've showed you a true frog and a true toad, but what about those other 12 families? What about the poison arrow frogs on my hat? What about the narrowmouth toads? What about the Suriname toads, the racophorid frogs, the eleutherodactylid frogs? What about them? That's wonderful, all the different kinds of frogs, the diversity. Biodiversity is what they call it these days. It's great. The third frog that I have from this pond is neither a true frog nor a true toad. It's a member of the family Hylidae, which most people call tree frogs, but some people call tree toads. This is a chorus frog. This is that little tiny frog that's making all that noise in this pond, and this little guy is full grown. Isn't that incredible? What a lovely little critter. And we'll let him go too. 3 different kinds of frogs. They're all frogs. Only one of them is a toad. Go figure.
The skin of some tropical frogs is so poisonous that even if you just kissed one, you might die.
Some are thin and some are skinny, some are round and fat. Some are smooth and some are warty, there's nothing wrong with that. Some are green and some are orange, some are multi-hued, some are dainty and polite, while others are just rude. Oh, frogs, there's nothing wrong with frogs. Amphibians hop around in bogs. Bugs beware when the frogs are there, that sticky tongue will get you. Down the hatch in nothing flat, there's no way out, you betcha. Jumping left and hopping right, then leaping up and down. Some with smiles upon their faces, while others always frown. Oh, frogs, there's nothing wrong with frogs. Amphibians that hop around in swamps and ponds and bogs. Ever since 200 million years ago today, they've been doing alright. Now they're here to stay. Oh, frogs, there's nothing wrong with frogs. Oh, frogs, there's nothing wrong with frogs. Amphibians hopping around in the swamps and the bogs.
The biggest frog is the African Goliath frog. A big one is the size of a small dog.
Well, I guess we've covered the length and breadth of the topic of frogs and toads. We've discussed wild frogs and pet frogs. We've talked about tadpoles. We've talked about the breeding season and the difference between frogs and toads. Ooh, and that reminds me, you know, when I was listing the various families of frogs, I was talking about the eleutherodactylid frogs. I'm sorry, in the interest of total accuracy, I have to admit that I was wrong. I meant to say leptodactylid frogs. Everybody knows that Eleutherodactylus is just one genus within the leptodactylid group. My sincere apologies. So, until next time, Handsome Mo and I would like to say, we're nature nuts, and we hope you are too. Bye for now. You okay, Mo?
Same time each and every week, uncensored and uncut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.